So, moving right along, some targets and some ideas that I use for helping me with accuracy in the field. One of the things that I use are these splatter targets. I'm a big fan of these for a lot of different reasons. Several companies make targets like these. They even have zombies or all kinds of, crazy rabid deer or whatever kind of targets that splatter when you shoot them. And basically what happens is these are repairable. I even brought along the little dots and took most of the dots away so you can kind of see exactly what the little black dots look like. My son's 3.5 at the time I did this video, and we like to put the stickers on here together whenever I have any holes in the target. But basically, whenever you shoot the black or the red, you get a little white outline of that bullet point of impact, which is perfect for immediate feedback of where your point of impact is. This is especially crucial when I'm shooting 100 yards or further and I'm at the range and I don't have to whip out the binoculars. I can look right through the scope, see where my point of impact was, and adjust if needed. I can also go through, this is a Dirty Bird target from Birchwood Casey, not a sponsor of ours at this current point when I did this video, but I buy these from the sporting goods stores. You can get these from discount stores or the sporting goods sections just about anywhere. And this gives me immediate feedback, and you have the little dots to put back here so you can reuse the target. It goes a lot further than a typical paper target does. Another product that I'm really excited about using, and I've been using for a little over a year now, is ghost targets. Ghost targets are the best way to explain them. They're kind of like little marshmallow looking clay pigeons, basically. And I'll open up one of them to kind of show you. You suspend these typically. You can hang these from something as simple as a rubber band and a paper clip, and just hang these at your gun range you've got at home, or if you go out in a field somewhere, you can easily hang these up. Or you can go to a standard gun range. Most of them will let you utilize something like this or hang these up from little push pins like at the gun range I go to. We just hang these from rubber bands on a push pin, and they work like little bitty marshmallows. Like I said, they're about the size of a marshmallow. You get them in 3 different sizes, small, medium, or large, and basically they kind of dissipate. They become, we call it ghosting. When you hit one of these, they ghost. They basically just turn into a powder, and then that powder kind of fades away with the wind, which is so cool. So it looks like a ghost is leaving as soon as you hit the targets. This is so innovative. I actually know and I'm friends with the guys who invented and created these. GhostTargets.com. You can get a bag of these for around 20 bucks, something like that. Very affordable and fun, fun, fun. Great ways for youth to learn how to shoot and pinpoint that accuracy. Remember the saying, aim small, miss small. I'm a really, really big fan of saying that. Aim small and miss small. And furthermore, you can also have competitions with your friends at the range where you sit there and go back and forth and try to take a shot at each one. You can play horse, you can play so many different games, just kind of like playing basketball and having a competition with each other with each one of these that you put out there and shoot. So you can have hours and hours of practice. And if you don't hit one completely, you still have the chunk of the main one that you can hit and try to kind of get that one to ghost or dissipate in the air, which is awesome. So ghost targets, GhostTargets.com. Check these guys out. I absolutely love this. If you think you're a really good shot with a 22, this will help train you to be even more accurate and more precise before. Because a lot of times whenever you're playing with a paper target like this, you can shoot all day long and you can still not really get that precise pinpoint accuracy. And ghost targets help train you to get down to the nitty-gritty of absolutely aiming small and hitting that target and making that even a better accuracy practicer. So very, very good point. Okay, next we'll talk about rifles, and then we'll talk about handguns. So I'm going to take this next gun that I've got right here, which is the gun we talked about a minute ago, the Mosin Nagant. I'm going to open this completely up, show you that it is completely empty, and I'm going to even stick my finger up here into the chamber. I have no loaded or live rounds up here in the carrier. I took them off before I did this video. And what I'm going to do now is do a close-up of me shooting and talk about some practical accuracy things. Let's go through the basic scenario of shooting. Basically, load up your gun, okay? In a dry fire scenario like this, make sure that your gun is not loaded, okay? And it doesn't matter who was around the gun last, does not matter, you know, where the gun was stored or anything like that. I've read different stories and accounts of potentially awful things of people having or getting ready to dry fire a gun or practice with the gun at home that they didn't think was loaded that actually was. So again, cannot stress that enough. Be safe when you're doing anything with firearms around the house, especially when it comes to pulling the trigger and practicing your trigger control and your trigger pull. So this gun is a Mosin Nagant, again, old military gun. It's got a very strong bolt in it, and I can dry fire it. I've checked with dozens of gunsmiths. They all say the same thing. A lot of other modern guns, especially rimfire guns, you're going to want to make sure you use dummy rounds or dummy caps or snap caps. They're called different things, and basically stick them inside the chamber where you would load a bullet. Make sure it's the dummy cap, not a live bullet. Make sure it's the dummy round, not a live bullet. And simply load it up just like you're getting ready to shoot and not damage the firing pin. This is especially important on 22s and rimfire guns especially. Okay, so what we do then is just simply get down, make sure we have a good cheek weld, and make sure we have a good sight picture. What I try to do whenever I get onto, whether I'm shooting a red dot, whether I'm shooting a EOTech holographic sight, or if I'm shooting crosshairs like this, I'm going to take my scope coat off here. Awesome scope protection, by the way, scope coat. I'm going to just make sure I'm pinpointing a spot on that target. I'll even sometimes take a dot from this and put it in the middle of the bullseye of the red target to pinpoint on that target. And slow my breath down, slow my heart rate down, kind of go into a meditative state or a zone, if you will, and just slowly press on that trigger. Now, what I even practice doing and what I actually brought along with me is this is just a Sharpie pen. This is just a marker, okay? And I also have another pen right here I normally carry in my pocket here just so I can practice doing this all the time. When it comes to trigger control, what I really like to do is practice throughout the day, whatever I'm doing. This is obviously a benign and non-harmful thing to practice on, this little pen, is practice creeping up that trigger. Because some of my military guns especially, and some of even your commercial guns, are going to have a long, creepy trigger. And if you don't get that adjusted, you've got to compensate for it. So catching up the slack on that trigger, finding out where that breaking point, right where it breaks off of is, and then click. Finding out where that click point is. But the idea I'm practicing with this pen is simply a strong, but solid, but constant, but smooth trigger control and trigger press. I'm not going to say trigger pull because that would, you know, that pulling is not the right terminology, I don't think, even though we use that a lot for when you're pulling the trigger or when you're actually pressing the trigger. It's more of a trigger press or a trigger depress. You're just simply finding that sweet spot, and just even if you need to stop at that sweet spot, and right before the break is where the sweet spot is. Pulling that trigger, boom, till you find the sweet spot there. I'm doing the same thing here when I'm practicing. I'm either catching up after I'm on target, I'm catching up the slack in that trigger, and I'm finding right before the breaking point and making sure I'm dead on, my breath is slowed. What I usually do is take a really deep breath, and on the downslide of that breath, that's when I squeeze on the trigger, okay, or slowly press the trigger. Control press, no jerking, and when you're shooting a rifle, you want to only use the top tip part of the pad of your finger, okay, on the trigger. Slowly, deliberately, and smoothly. Most of the accuracy problems I see in shooters these days when I am at the range and I'm trying to help folks is because they're wrapping too much finger around the trigger, or they're simply pulling the trigger and then they're jerking to the left or jerking to the right, or they're flinching. And that is, again, when you tense up really good and you're kind of getting scared of what's going on, and then you're afraid of the recoil, and then boom, you're always going to make a bad shot when you flinch. You close your eyes right before the shot and just hope to God that it goes well. No, that's not good at all, okay? So those are the things that you want to get away from. And again, a good recoil pad or a good recoil pad rest on the gun or on your shoulder, even underneath your shirt, is a good remedy for not being afraid of that. Now, another thing that's legal here in Texas, many states this is not legal yet, but they've also made suppressors legal. Whenever muzzle blast affects a lot of shooters, it's the sound of the shot. It used to really affect me when I first started shooting, especially these higher power guns. You can definitely get silencers now. So if muzzle blast is an issue, if you flinch because of muzzle blast or the anticipation of muzzle blast, certainly consider getting a silencer fitted for your gun if it's legal in your state. They just made it legal for hunting season. I've got a gunsmith actually working on a silencer, possibly a suppressor for this gun. So because it's already been kind of modified and everything like that, I'm thinking about getting one for that for hog hunting. So silencer can certainly help in accuracy in paring down the sound of the muzzle blast, which leads to flinching in a lot of regards. Okay, I'm going to get behind this gun. I'm going to zoom the camera in on me so you can see exactly how I shoot and the fundamentals of staying on that target during the shot. So I'm back here with my Mosin Nagant, and it's a completely unloaded gun. I will show you again just for the safety part of our video. And putting my finger all the way into the chamber, nothing in the chamber. You want to check, even if you're positively sure, the main rules with any kind of firearms handling that we all learned and that we should continue to practice is treat every gun as if it is loaded, and never point it at somebody or something you do not intend to destroy, and obviously that counts here as well. But we want to make sure is that we check that gun and just double, triple check it is not loaded at all before we do anything like this. Now again, it's raining outside. My initial plan was to do this at the actual gun range, but this is just to show you how I practice at the gun range and how I practice when I'm doing dry fire here at home. So I'm basically going to par down the power to, this is a 4x10 power scope, and basically I'm just carrying this down to, or parring it down to about 4 power, just because I'm shooting right in front of me, or practicing my shot right in front of me, and I'm going to simply dial down my magnification and focus down so I can focus on what I'm shooting on. I've got a target in front of me. I'm simply pinpointing an area on that target, and that target is this one. I've got one set up in front of me, but I've actually got a dot on it right here, just like this dot I'm going to put on right here. Ta-da! That way I can focus and pinpoint my accuracy even better. And so I'm going to aim for that middle black dot. So it's not enough just for the red circle for me. I'm a little bit particular about accuracy. I want to go for the absolute smallest object I can concentrate on that target. So that being the case, I'm going to line up, get a good cheek weld, make sure my gun is fitting me well. Concentrate on that. You don't have to hold your gun, especially if you're on a full rest. This is a high score rapid fire rest, which I'll mention again later in our segment. But basically, you don't need to hold it completely down. You know, when you're dealing with a gun like this, you don't need to hold the forearm. It's certainly just as well to hold it back here, or if you're just dealing with a front rest, cushion your non-shooting hand up underneath you and balance you so you're on target there if you're just shooting with a forward rest. This is a forward and rear rest, and it's adjustable, so I can even shoot a handgun with it, which I'll talk to you about later in the video, but I can simply go back and forth with adjusting the size of it to the size of the weapon, which is what I love about high score products. And again, check out their website. They've got a ton of good stuff at Midway USA and a lot of other retailers out there. Okay, so I'm going to simply find my target. I'm going to just use the pad of my finger, just the pad of my finger here, and I'm just going to concentrate on that, not move the barrel, make sure I'm still as a bird, even though I still have to talk to do this video. Calm my breath down, pinpoint my target. Even if my crosshairs hover over that target, I want to make sure I'm as still as I possibly can be. Still as possibly can be. I want to constantly concentrate on the smallest part of that target. Just the tip of my finger. Slow, silent, quiet. Okay? The only thing that should happen at that point at the after the shot section is to follow through. Basketball, baseball, archery, any kind of sport out there, any kind of pursuit, you should follow through or freeze a little bit after the shot. Don't pull your head out of the shot. Don't try to figure out what, where the bullet went, where the point of impact was just yet. Just freeze to make sure your shooting form is good throughout the shot and making sure it's 100% threw out a good shot and good to go. So I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to replicate, make sure I have nothing in the magazine, obviously, which I don't. My barrel's continuing to be free of any cartridge or any live ammunition. I'm going to shore up again. This is an awesome rest. God, I love this thing. Just the least amount of contact you can have with the gun, especially when you're sighting it in, is the best. And freeze for a second, and then come up. Okay, one more time. There we go. So those are good shooting fundamentals. A lot of times when people are just using sandbags and not using a high quality rest like this high score rest, you know, they're going to pull off target, they're going to wobble around. I've shot with older shooters especially that have kind of a shake. I've got one guy that I shoot archery with all the time, and he kind of shakes all the time. A rest like this is going to be your friend. You know, you typically don't carry something like this big out into the field, but again, practicing your fundamentals here is going to help you make sure you're doing even better when you're in the field, and having a solid rest and solid fundamentals and fundamental structure to your shooting here is going to make sure when you're shooting with just a sandbag or just a front rest, whenever you're actually in the field, or even on a monopod, bipod, tripod, anything like that that you're shooting on, that you're going to be solid. So whenever you're sighting in any kind of gun, especially make sure you allow at least a minute for that barrel to cool down before your next shot. Don't load up your next round either, because this little chamber area is a cooling port, just as the front muzzle is, for the inside of your barrel. That's very, very important. So again, ammunition is not cheap, especially not anymore these days. Make sure every shot counts, especially when you're sighting in your gun. And utilize a good rest like this at the range, and utilize a good front rest or pod or shooting stick or anything like that when you're out in the field hunting. And again, good follow through after the shot is paramount. Don't pull your head out of the scope, don't pull your head off of the rifle, just freeze. After the shot, just like in archery, just like in football, just like in bowling, or any other kind of sport out there, that's very, very, very important. And that was a good shot as well. I'm gonna do one more, maybe two more. I just like shooting. Have I mentioned how much I absolutely love this rapid fire rest from High Score? This thing is absolutely incredible. I love it. It can go from a pistol to a rifle, on a rail, back and forth. It is incredible. It can fit just about any kind of gun out there. It's perfect. It's a perfect rest for this. Here we go again. Deep breath, rest. Gonna be calm and relaxed. Gentle trigger press. Very, very gentle trigger press. Nice groups. Now I'm down here at our target. You can see clearly why I love to use targets like the Dirty Bird, because this is great. I can actually see my target point of impact the minute that I shoot in my scope without having to run all the way down to the range. Is a whole lot better than using paper targets and not being sure where your hit is. It's very, very important. So that's a good tight little group there, and that is the way we like to do it.